everyone, Nashi here. So in this video we will be going over the Maehwa Succession. It's going to be released tomorrow in NAEU. Probably by the time this video gets released it'll be today in NAEU. But I just wanted to do this video to kind of give everyone something to look at and get an understanding of what to expect with this kit. Maybe to understand how it operates to a certain level. I'm not an expert at this kit. I'm not going to ever claim I'm an expert at this kit. I'm still new to it just like you guys are. I just spent the time testing it out, trying to get a feel for it to kind of give you guys an early representation of how it looks and what my opinions are on it. So first things first, the agenda on this video, we're going over the add-ons, the skills, as much detail as possible without boring you to death. I probably will anyways. Apologies for that. Also going over some PvP mechanics such as the cancels, some accelerators, and hopefully a few combos. Nothing too crazy though on the combos. I don't want to go too in depth on it. I mean, you guys will be able to figure stuff out. I have confidence in you. Also going over a little bit of PvE and zones like PvE Manshaums and Stars End, just to give some representation of how the kit operates. I am not an expert at PvE. I'm not an expert in PvE and Awakening. Take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, so for everyone that's been asking about my opinion on this, overall, I think the kit's really strong. There are some things to keep in mind. So this kit has a lot of protections in comparison to our Awakening kit. So we are far more protected when it comes to large scale, which is good. Congratulations on everyone that asked for all the super armors, because we got quite a bit of them. Tigerblade became far more useful now, so that's really good. You can actually combo with it now, versus just Carver and left clicking, or Carver left click, Carver left click. But yeah, so you can actually combo effectively and efficiently in Tigerblade. The new red sword buff I go over in detail, but that's pretty decent in a lot of ways. Maybe not the greatest way to activate it, but it's whatever. It's a new mechanic. It's interesting. So yeah, I mean, my opinion on it for large scale, good. I would say it's pretty solid. Mind you, I haven't played in large scale with it yet. I'm just looking at the abilities and kind of getting a feel for them. That's my understanding of how it probably will operate in a good kind of fashion. Maybe like a B tier kind of thing, depending on everyone else's damage and whatnot. The important thing is you're protected and you can deal a lot of damage really quickly and effectively. So those are key things. Your TTK, your time to kill, it's really fast. So that's what's important, and it's really fast and protected while doing it. So that's really important in large scale. And then for 1v1s, I would say that 1v1s, it's okay. There's some issues with how some skills operate, like Stigma. It needs to be adjusted. I put in requests to have certain things tweaked. I'll put the link to my posts in the description to kind of go over what I think should be tweaked, but I'm not going to go over it in this video. I'm already going to be spending a lot of time in this video and making you guys waste a lot of your lives watching it. But yeah, so I just wanted to give my opinion on it. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how the kit is. As far as like the kit by itself, I'm not comparing it to any other classes. I would say compared to Awakening, it's better for large scale for sure. 1v1s, arguably right now in its current state, it's weaker than Awakening, mostly because of some mechanical issues of its that need to be addressed. But if those get addressed, then I would say this could be arguably better than in 1v1. But yeah, so that's my opinion on it. I think a lot of people agree with that assessment that have actually tested it, or at least have said that themselves, to which I agree. And yeah, but I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into it for you guys and let you guys enjoy. Alright, so now we can get into the Succession add-ons. So these are the ones I recommend, but before I get into the ones I recommend, I'm going to kind of go over how the add-ons kind of work with Succession, because I know some people had questions on this. It's pretty simple. It's just like if you were to be working with Awakening, but the idea is that even if the skill is a Succession skill, like Blind Slash, for example, or Red Moon, you can choose it in both the normal skill or the Succession skill. It's one or the other. So it doesn't matter where you pick it, you can pick it in one or the other. So I purposely got Retaliation for the sake of testing out the Red Moon one to show you, and show that as a representation. So Red Moon is right here, and I can pick and select whatever I want, hypothetically, if I were to do that. But first things first, before I show that I did that, you can clearly see that I can get the same exact add-on for the Succession side of the list as well. So just to answer some of those questions, and if I were to replace this one in the Succession list with the add-on that I would like to have, you'll see that in the normal list, Red Moon is no longer available. So this is what you would kind of expect. I mean, you can only have add-ons for one add-on setup for a skill at a time. Otherwise, I'd be stacking add-ons. That'd be pretty dope. But so yeah, that's the idea. It's very simple. Normal skills and Succession skills. Obviously, skills like the very specific ones in Succession, like Stigma or Sticky Snowflake, you can only do in the Succession tree list. But skills that are across both in Pre-Awakening and Succession, you can use in either or. So if you have like an instance where you want to use a Stigma down here, you can maybe prioritize like Blooming up here to kind of help you get that slot available. Maybe you wanted a Stigma and Sticky Snowflake in the Succession list for whatever build you're doing. You could try to prioritize having only Red Moon up here, and then maybe get rid of something else and put Blind Slash, or maybe not even use Blind Slash, whatever the case is. But now that I got that explanation out of the way, this is the list that I'm currently looking at using with retail when it comes out. It is subject to change. Like with my add-ons, I tend to play with them a lot. It really depends on how I feel the kit that I'm using it for needs. So maybe later down the road, if I feel like I'm using Whirlwind Cut a lot more, maybe I'll consider adding Whirlwind Cut as an add-on rather than something else that I have on here. But for right now, this is kind of what I'm looking at. So we got Stub Arrow with 4% accuracy for 12 seconds, and negative movement speed to my target for 7 seconds. Dragon Bite, 20% crit chance, and 7% attack speed. This is just really nice because we're going to constantly be hitting our opponent, and we want to make sure that when we combo, if we use D-Bite, we get those bonuses. Same concept goes with Blind Slash. It's a combo piece, so whenever I'm comboing with Blind Slash, which we will in some combos, the bonuses are really nice to help beef up your damage. Then we got Blooming here for 15% or 15 PvP attack and 7% attack speed. Again, kind of just getting redundancy going here with the attack speed, just because we want to make sure that if we use those abilities individually, like there might be times when I just use Blooming outright to like try to kill someone and finish them off. The attack speed will help me end that animation sooner and leave me less vulnerable, say for instance if I miss, or I'm in a group combat scenario and I don't want to be hit by someone that's watching what I'm doing. Red Moon, I put in the Succession tree in this case. You don't have to, you can do either or, it doesn't matter. Like I mentioned earlier, in this case I did PvP attack plus 15 and then attack speed 10% for 5 seconds. So again, redundancy. This is just to make sure, like I said before, if I use these individually, I get those bonuses so that I can do a variety of combos, and no matter what combo I kind of use, I'm going to hit hard, and that's the idea. Here we got Stigma, just like with Awakening, we got the 30% crit and the negative movements attack speed. I do this particular setup, not everyone does this. I think the attack speed's pretty nice in a way. Movement speed could also be really nice. and a lot of people tend to use those or the dot effect, the pain damage. It's a personal preference thing. I try to look at it as maybe the 7% attack speed will give me an opening to counterattack. So movement speed could arguably do the same thing depending on the class you're fighting. There's even a casting speed one if you wanted to use it against casters, but I haven't found it very useful. But it's just the idea. And then Blind Slash, like I showed earlier, it's just a redundancy of D-Bite, just in case I don't use D-Bite, but I tend to use Blind Slash within combos just to make sure I get those bonuses. So yeah, that's a quick little rundown of the PvP add-ons. So for the PvE add-ons, I would really look into probably just doing very similar what we would do before. So Red Moon 30 attack for PvE, and then attack speed, and then for blooming, or possibly even maybe even decap actually, because we spam decap a shitload, a literal shitload. Nope, actually, if we do the Red Moon, then decap will kind of feel useless probably. Would probably go maybe with just leaving it as blooming, or maybe consider whirlwind cut, maybe more defenses. Say you're in a strong area like underwater zone, maybe you might want to consider some extra defense bonuses like evasion and defense, or maybe some accuracy, because not every time in PvE you're going to be using arrows to hit your mob, so maybe the accuracy bonus from whirlwind cut might be nice. I'm just trying to think of maybe some options that I might consider. In most zones though, I probably won't use whirlwind slash. It's only like high-end zones like Hystria and underwater zone that I would actually consider it, and that new zone I can't remember the name of it. So that's just to give you guys kind of an idea. Make it up as you go, but play around with the skills, and when you kind of figure out what skills you're utilizing on the regular, that'll help you determine what you need to use add-ons for. Alright, so to do a quick rundown of the skills, let's take a quick look here. So what we got is we have the Maehwa Succession buff. It's the Red Sword buff that I will call Red Sword buff until we get the name tomorrow in English, so that'll be good to finally know what the hell they call it. But this I'll talk in detail over here after all the other skills, because it does take a lot of time to explain this one. I'll try to make it as concise as possible. Here we have the quote-unquote E buff. It actually is not attached to E. You have to attach it to your hotbar and then utilize it. But what it does is basically the same thing almost as our Awakening E buff. But it gives 30% attack, or 30% crit, 20% attack. And it gives extra hits on certain skills. I can't read the Korean, so I'm not entirely sure what it is, but or which attacks it applies that to. But I think it's most attacks gain an extra 420% times 1. It's hard to say. I can't read the Korean. I'll get a better translation tomorrow. But the next is a 5% stun ignore. So this ignores 5% stun resistance. Just like our pre-awakening version, which where is she at? There she is. Which does ignore knockback and stiffness plus 15%. So this would be a stun version of that. That'll help out a lot because we actually do have a number of stuns that we utilize now in the Succession kit. Like the forward blind thrust becomes a stun, decapitation becomes a stun, and of course, or decapitation was always a stun. I mean, we're going to be utilizing it basically for the first time in ages. And then blooming is also a stun. So we've got quite a few stuns to work with now. Yeah, so I mean that's going to be really useful and handy on making sure that those connect more often. Still going to need precision gems though. And then next we have our accuracy passive. So this becomes available after you get this particular do that. Oh yeah, so it's that particular one. Once you get this particular rank of the sword training, it'll allow you to actually utilize the accuracy bonus passives. So then you can do 1%, 2%, 3%, 5%, and then 8% in total. So that's really good. 8% extra accuracy across the board on all our skills is really, really nice. So that'll help out versus those evasion builds. Next, we got Carver on the list. Carver just does a lot more damage. I think I had an accuracy increase, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Yes, got 11% accuracy increase, so that's pretty nice. And it also became our new DP shred, so it adds all DP plus, minus 15 for 10 seconds on good hits. It can't be used on cooldown, so when you have it off cooldown, make sure to utilize that in like PvP and PvE to help shred your opponents. And then it also gained down smash, so that's a pretty interesting little addition. It could be fairly useful in some combos. I haven't really come up with a combo that utilizes it for down smashing yet, but it's there as an option, so it's weird. Pretty useful. 6-second cooldowns, not bad. So, and it does a lot of damage with the second hit. You'll see the extra hit damage, 762 times 6. That's massively different than the original one. The original one did 575 times 2, so we get an extra hit on that main hit. And then the extra hit was only 575 times 3. And then in Tigerblade it does a little bit different. But now it's like basically more than double what it originally was doing. So it's a lot more damage. And I'll show a neat combo about how to utilize this later. Divider got a damage increase across the board. 40% crit rate is new, I believe. Yes, so get a passive 40% crit rate, which is pretty interesting. They really buffed that skill. And I think the accuracy is normal. No, they actually added the 7% accuracy. Most of the skills actually got a base accuracy increase across the board, so it makes our kit a lot more viable versus evasion targets. They took into consideration that fact that people are going evasion, so that's really good. I'm not a big fan of this skill, and personally, like, it requires a lot of skill points to get Divider all the way up. It's like 200 or something like that. So I probably won't really utilize it, to be honest, because that's like, 200 plus 300 point saving or something like that. So right there, I saved myself quite a bit of points. So I mean, some people will like it, some people won't. Right now, I'm not a fan, but you experiment with it yourself. You'll get your free skill books, or whatever the hell these things are, the Armstrong skill guides. So take that opportunity and mess with it, see what you think about it. I just personally wasn't a fan of it, and because there's a design flaw with it in Tigerblade, you cannot use Tigerblade chase cancel when you have the succession version, and I'll demonstrate that right now. Blip, 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 blip. Where is this? There it is. So this is chase cancel with the normal, and then if you skill this bad boy up real fast, this is what happens. So you end up losing your Tigerblade chase cancel. So I'm not a big fan of that. I just want you guys to be aware of that moving forward, and what I plan on doing, just so you kind of have an idea. But I mean, it's probably useful. I just haven't found a use for it yet personally. So don't take it as it's bad. I asked in the global labs to have them change that to make it so that you can cancel it in Tigerblade, but because of how it works in Tigerblade now, not sure how they're gonna deal with that, if they will at all. So moving forward, Dragon Bite does more damage across the board. It does amazing damage in in Red Sword buff mode. I mean, Tigerblade, it does okay damage when you do the spamming, but the Red Sword buff is where it, for some reason, it hits a lot harder than the Tigerblade version, but it's the same animation. So that can pretty much one-shot someone if you have, considerable gear. So it's pretty nice. The normal Dragon Bite is, fairly normal, just does more damage now. It actually has a little bit wider hitbox too from testing with Shaky Bay. So, Could have been global lab servers. They're really awful, so we'll have to actually test that on retail, but it's something to keep note of. It might actually be better with the hitbox. So, and it gained down attack again. I think it had down attack normally, but in Tigerblade they removed it. Yeah, nullified in Tigerblade. It probably still says that. I can't tell. It's in fucking Korean. So, moving on. We got Whirlwind Cut. Whirlwind Cut had a pretty significant buff to it. It got a damage increase for sure. And it also gained a stiffness on the third hit. I believe you do not necessarily need to learn Ultimate to get the stiffness. I actually haven't tested that. But Ultimate and Pre-Awaken Kit gives you a stiffness on good hits. It's intended for the third hit, I believe. But it becomes native on this on the third hit. And you get Super Armor, and it's a 5-second cooldown, so it's pretty nice. You don't have to use all 3 hits. It costs 100 stamina per hit. This is where the negatives come in. Each swing requires 100 stamina, so that sucks. They need to fix that and make it so that the first swing is 100, and the subsequent swings, if you continue it, do not cost any stamina. That would be my idea to make it fairer. Yeah, this costing 300 stamina is kind of rough. But it is a really cool idea. I like that they made it Super Armor, and it's a pretty short cooldown, 5 seconds, so that's pretty nice. It can be pretty versatile in some situations. You could just do the first one and then back out. Maybe give you a quick Super Armor in between a combo kind of thing. So that's an option. You can even just 2 and back off. Make sure you back out right away though, because that Super Armor does not linger. So yeah, just back out immediately. Overall, the skill's pretty good. I want them to adjust that stamina cost badly. You can use this in Tigerblade, so that's always fun. And I'll go over the Tigerblade skills actually later, because there's a lot of details with that. Next, we have 4 Blind Thrust. Pretty much everything about the skill is the same, except for a few major things. 1, it turns into a stun instead of a stiff. And 2, you can spam it. But if you use it on cooldown, you don't get the ability to stun your opponent, and I think damage is slightly less. Still hits kind of hard though. But everything else about it, the skill is pretty much the same, just higher damage on it. Yeah, 20% accuracy rate, 100% crit rate was all normal. All the debuffs to your opponent, like the negative 30% accuracy for 10 seconds, that's normal. Melee accuracy, mind you. 30% crit buff if you use it. All that's the same. You can also use it in Tigerblade, which is interesting. So yeah, you can actually fully combo in Tigerblade, so that's cool. But yeah, I mean, it's really useful. It's actually not bad for mobility too in PvE, like low level PvE, which I'll show later, like a little quick clip of it. But yeah, it's interesting. It's cool that it's a stun effect, because say for example you catch someone with a stub arrow, well now you can 4 Blind Thrust into them and get a stun to follow up with, and that's pretty useful. It's kind of like they reversed how Musa does it for Maehwa. So Musa will get the 4 Blind Thrust hit or the stub arrow hit, and then they'll charge him with D-Bite for the stun. We instead will do the D-Bite or the stub arrow, or whatever we catch with, and then follow up with the 4 Blind Thrusts. Or you can do 4 Blind Thrusts at the beginning and just stun them out right in the beginning, and that's pretty nice too. So some options for you. Next we have Blooming. Blooming is pretty fucking strong. Yeah. That's pretty much what I could say about it. They increased the damage a literal shitload. They gave it 100% accuracy rates. This thing hits like a truck. It will kill most people and 330 or below, depending on your gear, of course. If it's my gear, like around 277, 278, I could probably one-shot people at the 315 to 320 range with it by itself if I get a back attack. So yeah, pretty strong. And and the animation feels so satisfying. There is some cons. The animation does have a big wind up at the beginning, but the damage happens all at once. It's not spread out over the course of the animation like with Phantom or Absolute Blooming. And on top of that, you can cancel the ending animation with Decapitation and Sticky Snowflake. So that's pretty interesting. I'll show that real quick. So that's what Decap looks like after we cancel the Blooming. So that's pretty nice. And it's still fast. It's faster than the old Blooming for sure. So it's really hard to be mad about that wind up. But I would like to see that wind up reduced a little bit. It does feel super satisfying when you land it, though. You're like, you're gonna be just fucking shredding people when you hit that. It's so nice when it hits. Still 15-second cooldown, so actually they kept the cooldown the same, so that's fine. It still drains mana and everything, so it's still devastating to people's mana pool. And because there's a lot more hits, it will definitely drain their mana pool. There's over 13 hits now. So they have no mana. They better hope that they didn't use a pot recently for the HP so that they can recover their mana. But yeah, it's really solid in PvP now. Oh, something I didn't note about the 4x thrust. There is I want to say a bug or some sort of problem with it. My recommendation is, if you're going to use it, just be aware of this, but I am debating on using it outright until they, or not using it outright until they fix it. Basically, it's a connectivity issue. When you do the frontal guard bypass, like is typically done in my videos or many other Musa's and Maehwa's videos, it actually has a connectivity problem when you use the succession version for some reason. So here, I'll show that again. Here's it's really smooth and whatnot. It transitions really well back into chase. But when you use the succession version, it has like it almost sticks on the stab, and then it's like, it feels really heavy trying to get back in the chase. It's a smoothness issue. It may not seem like it from the video perspective, but I can feel it. Like, it's really there. And I'm sure anyone that actually ends up using it will notice it over time, and also notice that it doesn't connect very well when hitting your opponent. There's two issues with it. It could just be because I'm on Global Labs, so take it with a grain of salt. Test it out yourself and see what you think. But yeah, I just wanted to make mention of all these little weird things with it. I did put in a submission about that, so hopefully they figure that out and fix it. I know them dragging this out, but there's a lot of details. Blind Thrust, or Blind Slash actually. Blind Slash does the same thing it always did. Air attack damage, massive damage. They do have the damage reduced in PvP. But it hits so fucking hard now. Any lower geared player, you'll chunk them with it, even if you don't even get the float off. I wouldn't recommend for chip damage, but I mean, you could. Still floats on good hits and does air attack damage, so maybe if you happen to float them prior, you can use it to weave in for extra damage, or you can use it as the skill to float with, and then follow up with Carver. That combo right there, just those two skills, does massive damage. It's really strong. So that's really cool. Cancel animation, which I'll show later. But yeah, no, really good skill. And that's all I can say about it. Charge Stub Arrow. This is an interesting choice by the devs. They gave us Charge Stub Arrow. It says it does a lot more damage, 932 times 3, which the Absolute did 895 times 3. So I guess actually it's not really that much. So it's a little bit of an increase. And what they added to it was they gave it movement speed debuff of 20% for 5 seconds and all evasion rate minus 9% for 10 seconds on good hits. So that's a little interesting. And there's some key notes about it. So if you try to cancel animation, so I didn't let the charge up bar go all the way. If you do that, it actually just uses a stub arrow, so you won't get those negative effects applied to your opponent. What you need to do is actually fully charge it in order to get the negative effects. Or you can use charge evasive shot, and that will actually do the negative effects as well. So this gives more enticing aspects to using charged evasive shot, hitting your opponent in super armor or when they're naked from abilities, protections, and then you can get those negative effects applied to them. You could possibly even weave it into a combo too, but I don't know if I'd even bother with trying to weave it in unless you really felt the need to for styles. So it's an interesting choice. I actually put in a request to see if they would up the damage on charged evasive shot if you are charged stub arrow if you fully charged it. I think that would be pretty fair. I mean, I don't want to do a copy paste of Moose's Rabam, but come on, give the fucking skill some love. It does pitiful damage when fully charged, and you're vulnerable during that state. Even though it's a short period of time, you're still vulnerable. I would just like it to see some value added to the damage. But moving on. So decapitation is going to be used a lot probably. I mean, you don't have to use it, but you might want to, especially in PvE. You'll definitely want to be essentially kind of spamming it in a way. It got major buffs across the board. It does a lot more damage. Gained accuracy increase of like I think 6%, 6 or 10%, something like that. 6%. So you get a 6% accuracy increase plus the passive. That's 8% additional. It got air attack and down attack modifiers added to it, so that's really cool. And it's cancels for a lot of different skills now, including blooming and also like follow-ups from like blind slash, as well as other skills like debite, forward blind thrust. They gave it a lot of utility now as filler damage, so it's really good in those aspects. Still stuns, no protections, unfortunately. I would like to see super armor on it, but I understand why. Because they gave us super armor in it in the red sword buff mode if it's off cooldown. But yeah, there's a number of different things you can do with this skill now. So I'm glad to see that they gave it some purpose. It is tied to our red sword buff here that we'll be talking about soon, so I'll get into that shortly. Red Moon, pretty much everything is the same. The only differences are more damage, and you can use it with the red sword buff as well as in Tigerblade now. Decap can also be used in Tigerblade. I don't remember if blind slash can be used in Tigerblade, but debite, whirlwind cut, forward blind thrust, decap, carver, all those skills can be used in Tigerblade. So that's pretty nifty, and Red Moon can be used in Tigerblade as well as the exit animation, which is pretty cool. So you can pull off some pretty interesting things with Tigerblade now from a PvP perspective. They really buff Tigerblade, so I'll go over that here shortly. But the 2 awakening skills, so every succession gets 2 awakening skills brought over to the succession kit. R2 that they picked were Stigma and Sticky Snowflake, which actually I've grown attached to them because of what they did with them. So they actually made them pretty fucking strong. They hit hard as shit. So 852 times 6 versus the Stigma that we had originally. Where are you at? 852 times 2. So effectively giving it 4 more hits. That's huge damage increase. And it hits hard. It hits really hard. Poking someone down is possible in this kit, so you can literally poke them to death if they're lower DP. Higher DP, you can pressure them a little bit, but it's a little bit harder to do. Lower DP, though, you can shred them with just one Stigma hit will do 30-40% of their HP. It's disgusting. Then you have Sticky Snowflake, which they gave it super armor. Yay! Super armor off cooldown. And the negative, though, is that they changed the accuracy rate from 100 to 30%. Boo. But, to be fair, 30% is pretty solid, plus you got the passive with the 8%, so it's 38%. That's not bad. And then you also have the blooming got the 100%, so that's far more valuable on blooming, in all honesty. So I don't want to be spamming fucking Sticky Snowflake any more than I have to. So I like that they did that, honestly, and it's really, Sticky Snowflake hits hard as shit, so you're not going to really care too much. You're going to be using other abilities rather than doing a spamming Sticky Snowflake combo. So it's not bad at all. Everything else about the skill is the same. It just does more damage and it has super armor off cooldown. Still has a long cooldown though. I would love to see that cooldown brought down to 10 seconds rather than 15. But whatever. We're at the Dev's mercy. So yeah, that's all those skills. Now the red sword buff. Ugh. What are we at here time-wise? Christ, this is already 20 minutes. Alright, so the red sword buff, what's the easiest way to explain it? Basically, how it works is you get stacks for using decapitation. There's 3 stacks that you have to get in order to activate the red sword buff. So the stacks look like this: blue, yellow, and then on the final one, red. This means it's activated. You would have noticed if you were paying attention that you get 12 seconds for each of the blue and yellow buffs and only 10 seconds for the red buff. During this red buff, though, the red sword buff, you will get access to different versions of the abilities you have, such as the ones I mentioned earlier: Carver, Dragon Bite, Whirlwind Cut, Four Blind Thrust, Decapitation, and Red Moon. So here's what D-Bite looks like. Here's what Carver looks like. And that gains a frontal guard. The D-Bite gets a super armor during the whole animation. Here is the Carver gains frontal guard but does a float. Here's Decapitation. And then you can do 2 actually, so it's pretty interesting. So you can do like that. That's pretty cool. I like that they did that. And then Red Moon, ranged Red Moon. So, and it's super armor. So they put in some effort into figuring out what to do. A lot of people won't be a fan of the spamming of the decapitation, which I totally understand. I'm not going to sit here and defend it, because I think it's a very wonky mechanic in comparison to what they did for Musa. But at the same time, this gives us access to a number of super armor abilities that we otherwise wouldn't have, so that's pretty cool. Let me show you one more time. So super armor, frontal guard, decapitation off cooldown is super armor, and then Red Moon is super armor and ranged. So that's pretty nice. Hell yeah, that's right. So yeah, it's a really cool ability. I like the mechanic. It's a new mechanic. I love the idea. For large scale, I really hate to say it, but basically what you do is before you would go in, you'd kind of prep. And then you would go in, find a target, Red Moon, and then, you know, get the fuck out of Dodge. So that way you don't have to worry about being caught in the back, per se. But that's just to give you an idea of what you can expect to probably utilize it for. Everyone complained for a long time about giving Red Moon super armor. Well, here you go. You fucking got it. So no more complaints then. But yeah, so it gives you some alternative options of play. You don't have to utilize it, so you can just still run up normally and, you know, Red Moon like you would want to. It gives you the option to go into super armor, and it gives you range damage, so it makes it more enticing to use, not only defensive capabilities but also potentially offensive capabilities. So yeah, something to look at and consider. And then Tigerblade, like I mentioned, you can do combos in Tigerblade now, which is pretty fucking dope. So Tigerblade, here we go. So here's the D-Bite Carver. Their Carver looks different in this, and all these are super armor, by the way. Here's Whirlwind Cut, and that will stiff an opponent. Carver will float. Forward Blind Thrust, that will stun. Divider, if you had the normal divider, the other divider I showed earlier, and then Red Moon to exit. So you can exit it whenever you want. So that's pretty fucking sweet. The biggest problem everyone had with Tigerblade was you're stuck in that stupid skill for 30 seconds. You use it to disengage or engage from your opponent, but afterwards you're just sitting there, just clueless on what to do because there's not really anything you can do. But they gave Tigerblade so much combo potential now. As comboing in 1v1, it's not really something that you would combo with in large scale probably, but the ability to be able to like do whatever you want in Tigerblade now is pretty nice. It's a lot better quality of life than what we had originally, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, that's the skills. As far as skill points is concerned, you could get away with having around 18 to 1900 and to get basically all the essentials. If you get Divider and decide to choose that, that adds on a fair amount. So that's like 200 right there, skill points that I ended up using. So, and that puts you in the 2000 range. So, yeah, something to look at. All right, so now we'll get into the skills and some of the actual like cancels you can do and combos, just to give you an idea of representation. I'm not going to go over all of them, but I'll try to do my best on the cancels that I am aware of. I'll probably discover some more later, or other people will discover more later, as well as combos. But I just want to show at least an idea to kind of give you something to work with out of the gate. So some of the interesting ones is Carver. So Carver, that's the animation with the first hit into the second hit. You can actually skip that first hit and go straight into the second hit, which the second hit hits like a fucking truck. So you can do Blind Slash into Carver, and that's exactly how it'll look, and that does a lot of damage, depending on gear disparity. So that can, depending on your gear, if you vastly outgear someone, you'll one-shot them with that alone, so that's pretty nice. Some of the other things that they added was you can do decapitation with F key after certain abilities. Some of those would be Forward Blind Thrust, and then you do decap. D-Bite decap, Blind Slash decap. Remember that decapitation has down attack and air attack, so when you do Blind Slash, for example, and then you do decapitation with them in the air, that's air attack damage, so that's pretty nice. So those are some examples of what you can do there. Cancels for, let me see. Stigma into Sticky Snowflake is an accelerator. So that's how it looks. So here would be Stigma normally, and that's how long you take in order to get out of that skill. Currently, they don't have any cancels for Stigma, sadly. So you just have the actual the stab, and then you can accelerate into Sticky Snowflake because Sticky Snowflake accelerates it. So that's a really good one. And Sticky Snowflake super armor every 15 seconds. So, you know, as long as you're being mindful of that super armor, you can use it for protection. And it does massive damage. That little quick combo right there, it's disgusting damage. It's very, very high damage output versus most people. Some of the other major cancels would be the Red Moon and Blue Moon cancels. So I'll show the Red Moon one first. Red Moon you can cancel with Sticky Snowflake or Stigma. So that's the Stigma one. That one you can do immediately. The Sticky Snowflake one you have to wait like basically a second. I'm trying to get them to actually change that to be a little bit sooner. But that's what it looks like. So you can go in from Frontal Guard into Super Armor. Just catch up stain looks and the blooming one is Decapitation and Sticky Snowflake. So that's what decap looks like. And then we'll have to wait for the cooldown. Let's see what his DP is. Maybe we'll use him as a test subject real quick. Gotta wait for the cooldown anyways. It says 306. I'm gonna ask him if he'll let me test something on him. So here's the blooming sticky snowflake cancel. So that's what it looks like. It's pretty nice. Really good cancels to be aware of, or accelerators. Cool. This guy's gonna let me test some on him, so I get to show you guys some of the stuff. Alright, so here's an example of the damage. Mind you, I have a shitload, so let's drop my AP considerably. Let's make it represent my AP. So this is my AP bracket, not exactly my AP, but I'm at the 277, 278. He has 306 DP, he said, so that's pretty good chunking damage right there. So for example, if you were to actually call it ketchup stain, yeah. So if you're actually to have some pots and actually hit with some add-on buffs first, like so for example, Red Moon. Oh, well, these global lab servers are fucking garbage, so everyone moves. But let's go ahead and do that one more time. So you see that's fucking lethal basically right away. And let's show the blind slash into Carver cancel. So let's say I do a crit bonus first. So you'll notice right there, that was lethal. And something I want to note, some that you guys might want to look into is Carver's Flow Typhoon. It actually does a knockdown effect. It's a good follow-up on some of these combos. So it's a knockdown. It's anti-V, so it's really, really nice. So, I mean, that's really good. You can also follow that up with Decapitation afterwards, too. Or Sticky Snowflake. So, that's pretty nice. Let's see what some other options. Some of the cool things you can do would be doing a 4 blind thrusts into Whirlwind Slash, and then blind slash into decap. So that was a quick, easy kill. And you gain super armor during that whirlwind cut. It does use 300 stamina, mind you, so just keep that in mind. You can do a whole bunch of shit. So like, yeah, the sky's the limit essentially. So I mean, you can get in the red sword buff just like that. So, and then you can just, you know, do your range blooming if you wanted to. He's gonna put Kudamon for me. I'm gonna ask him what his DP is. I've tested this with like against 340 DP. It one shots. I even one combo, or not one shots in 340 DP, but one combo. I even one comboed, or almost one comboed, 420 DP. So he's at 318 DP. Do 328. He said he can do 328. I'm gonna have him do 328. Okay. So he's 328 DR. So let's show you. So that's still like really good, and then you could follow up with DP Shred and Blooming. So let me actually show you what Blooming looks like. It's disgusting, the damage. So let's see here. I got cooldown. Let me put the cooldown there. So here is that Stigma, Blooming, Decapitation cancel, and he's dead. It's disgusting. So yeah, this is ridiculous damage. So I'll show you how fast this combo can be. The Carver there does a DP shred on my opponent, so the Blooming hits even harder. you can do blooming first and do that, or carver first in the combo and do it that way. So, oh, didn't had that blind slash ready yet for some reason. Maybe I did a little fast, but still didn't matter. Still floated and then killed him. I mean, it just representation of damage. I mean, I'm not going to go into every single combo. I don't want to make this video an hour long, but I did want to show you guys all this stuff. Give you an idea of what to expect. Here's what it looks like with the E-buff too. Oh, don't do that. But you see how much faster it is. I mean, the animations are sped up in the Succession kit versus normally, and then when you add on the quote-unquote E-buff, it makes it just so much nicer and does a little bit more damage. So, yeah, just giving you an idea of what to expect with this kit and what you can do. Alright, so now I'll show you the red sword buff abilities and their damage and how you can kind of use them in a little bit of a combo. As well as the Tigerblade versions, just so you can kind of get a representation. So here's the Carver, and then the D-Bite version. That's at 280 AP versus 328 DP to kind of give you a representation. So that's a lot of damage. That was just Carver into D-Bite, and then you got your decapitation version, and that's if you do the follow-up decap as well, the secondary one. So that's pretty decent damage. If they're on the ground, that would be even more, so let's try to do that with them on the ground. Not that much more, but the second one actually did a shitload more. Probably evasion playing a role there, but or maybe the red sword buff version doesn't have down attack. Probably interesting. Maybe, who knows? But here's the red moon. Let me see here. So that's not bad. It's pretty good considering the 280 versus 328, and that's just red moon alone. So, and it's a fast animation, so it's pretty decent. And then you can also cancel that red moon as well with Stigma. So that's pretty nice. It's pretty nifty. So it's really good damage. For the red sword buffs now with Tigerblade. So here's with Tigerblade. I'll show you some of the abilities you can use. Here's forward blind thrust. So he immuned it because why not? Here's the stiff from Whirlwind Cut, the first slash. There's a stun from forward blind thrust. Carver still floats in Tigerblade. You can use Divider, and then Red Moon exits. It normally would float, but for some reason he's resisting a lot. But we don't have precisions in these Global Lab servers, so take it with a grain of salt. They do float. Take my word on it. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting. Mind you, I wasn't doing a full combo on him or anything like that, but you could do a full combo. As you've seen, I can CC him in a variety of different ways. And as long as you don't have that this particular Divider version, you can do the chase cancel and, you know, get around really quickly with no chase stamina cost. So it's pretty nice. And the D-Bite does similar damage to what the Red Sword buff one, except the Red Sword buff does a little bit more. But it's the same animation and everything. So yeah, it's those abilities. Alright, so from a PvE perspective at Polyforce, I kind of wanted to give you guys an idea of what to expect. Let's go ahead and drop our gear, because this is way too high for Polyforce. Sure, I guess we'll run with that. 197 with a Penkutum, whatever. So how PvE is going to work with this kit, it's going to be a whole bunch of doing 4 blind thrusts, D-bite, blind slash, and following it up with decapitation to get that red sword buff, that juicy, sweet red sword buff, so that you can utilize your AoE Red Moon. But to capitalize on decapitation, you want to use Sticky Snowflake to cancel it, or do an accelerator, as I like to call it, because it speeds up the animation, and it just does more AoE damage, and most of these packs will probably die from just that alone. So yeah, just like that. I mean, they just got deleted from just that alone. So decap, Sticky Snowflake, and then in the instance that they happen to survive, you just redo it, and then for the next pack you AoE Red Moon, and that's just like the whole concept of what you're going to be doing here. Let's see if we can I haven't done Polyforce in God knows how long. So as you see, they die pretty much immediately almost. Not much effort required. Very similar to Manshaums, except that Manshaums require a little bit more effort, probably with positioning and whatnot, for grouping the mobs up to kill them all in one shot. These mobs are pretty tightly packed, so this is going to be like similar effort to like Yahas, Nagas, Fogans, stuff like that. So, and then just AoE Red Moon. Blooming if you feel a little spicy, you know, in between your Red Moons. You can even use the Red Sword buff. D-bite is really strong in PvE, so it's worth it. I'm just slicing right there, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, a rotation over here. I'm just killing random shit, so it's just a whole bunch of that from what I can tell. Mind you, there might be a better way. This is just what I'm discovering as I'm playing with the kit, what I'm seeing, what works. And then just AoE Red Moon. I mean, take out entire packs. So at 197 AP. So yeah, it's pretty solid. I would say it's pretty fast for low level, and mid grind is pretty fair in comparison to Awakening. The end game I hear is also really high, but not like massively higher than Awakening. I haven't personally tested it yet, but we'll go ahead and check out Stars End, I think, and see how that runs. But I am not a very good PvEer, so take it with a grain of salt. Alright, so from a PvE perspective, at Manshaums, which is roughly 240 minimum AP, I have a lot of gear on, so take it with a grain of salt. But, and I also have a Penkutum, so that adds a lot more monster damage. But this is roughly 280 AP. If I were to throw on the Nova, where are you at? So roughly 280, 279, close enough. But this should give you an idea of what to expect from this grind. You're going to be primarily focusing on getting your Red Sword buff to do your AoE Red Moon, your ranged AoE Red Moon. And also, you're going to be spamming a lot of decapitation because you need to get that buff. And then also weaving in Sticky Snowflake and Stigma and Sticky Snowflake on top of that. That's kind of like what I'm seeing the grind. Like, that's a quick, you know, little AoE. And then you would Red Moon down the pack, and that's kind of like what the whole concept is. And then weave in Blooming whenever your Red Moon's on cooldown. And that's kind of what I'm, you know, like I'm seeing here. And I'm not an expert at the Succession yet at all. I'm just kind of showing you guys what I'm seeing. I'm sure there's going to be a different rotation of skills, but it seems to be pretty viable, so... And then, and a lot of AoE, and the Stigma is a little wonky right now because they need to fix it, but whatever. And then, yeah, I mean, then you just use your red moon, your AoE red moon. Don't waste it on a single mob though. The debite from here is actually pretty good too for PvE. It shreds. I hate that hard cast so bad. So yeah, that's pretty strong. It's different, and that's ultimately, I think that's what's the important part. So I guess in between, kind of like discovering this as I'm recording this, but in between Blooming and Red Moon, you can use the D-Bite spam to shred a mob, a couple packs of mobs. Like by the time you're using it, they're usually grouped up on you anyways, so it's kind of like what you can do. Like that, I guess. Probably could have just... Ooh, S rank, hell yeah, OP. Oh, whoops. Forgot the red min right there. Hello? Did they? Oh, they CC'd me during my red moon cast. Feels bad, outplayed by the mobs. Jeez, that glow from that jump. They put a little bit too much animation time into that. And how bright it is with the remastered. Yikes. It's a waste of blooming, sadly. I mean, you get the idea. So, I'm not weaving stigma in enough, so I'm wasting a lot of stamina. Plus, these characters don't have really good stamina. I only have like 2260. 2020 right now, actually. So, I have even less than I thought. So, for someone like me that has like 2700 stamina, it's like stamina's not really going to be an issue, I feel, for PvE at least. So yeah, that's just to give you a representation of it. Alright, so for in-game zones like Stars End, just go quickly over this. I don't think I've really come up with an amazing combo or anything like that. I would defer to other PvEers on what the best kind of combos would be, but I want to show something that's very important for in-game grinding with the Succession kit. So we have in our main kit, or what we have currently already, is under Whirlwind Cut, the ability Grinder. So what Grinder does is it actually lets you do a DP shred, a melee DP shred of -10 for 10 seconds on good hits. Now, this only applies on the third hit, and then you can stack that with the new DP shred on Carver, which is an all DP shred. So one's melee, one's all. So they're two different types, so they stack. So this is how it works. So as you see, one hit doesn't do it. And then now you see the DP buff right there, the DP shred. Well, there we go. Now you see two. There's the melee and the DP shred. The mobs are all over the place, so hold on. Let me group these up and then I'll do it cleanly. Come here, come here, come here, come here, come here, come here. There we go. Now you see both of them on there, and then so that's basically 25 DP shred on your opponent. And then you want to try to get your red sword buff, and then just AoE shred them down because you'll be protected. Kind of similar concept to like Manshaums or Polly. It's kind of all about utilizing the decapitation and getting that red sword buff, and then also weaving in your non-stamina cost skills. You're going to be spending more time at these individual packs, so stamina is not going to be a problem at all here. But they're still really good for the accelerators and of course the add-on bonuses. Like Stigma gives that 30% crit add-on if you followed my build, and then Sticky Snowflake just does pretty good AoE damage all around. So let's do a smaller pack. Let's bring them over here. Keep in mind I'm awful at PvE. I'm gonna say this with every zone that I go over in this video. So crit. And then right there, I didn't do my DP shreds, so that's why they're not dying fast enough. But now what we'll do is we'll try to do our DP shreds. Let's see here. It's hard to remember because this is all new, even for me that's been playing on it here and there for a while. So 1, 2, 3, Carver, Red Moon. I'm really slow at this, so and really bad at this. But I think you kind of get the idea. I mean, I'm so bad at this. So let's see if we can get a cleaner pack, because that was just fucking dog shit. So let's go over here. Alright, so they're all grouped up. Sometimes you get random spikes of like decapitation speed like that for some reason. I haven't quite figured out why, but it happens from time to time. You'll be able to cast decapitation like super fast. Probably some sort of like animation accelerator lock. Like it gets locked in for some reason. It's interesting. I need to figure out a real combo, but it's like, it's the idea that you need to do. I'm just bad with the kit for PvE right now. I'd say it's considerable, like, difference in terms of, like, not necessarily a considerable difference in terms of, like, awakening, but it's, like, it's definitely slightly more trash loot once you get better at it. That wasn't too bad. Also, I don't have knowledge, so I don't have that additional damage bonus, which is a thing. How much of it makes a difference, I don't know, but... Oh, I didn't have my red sword buff. Just still not used to it yet. I've heard from KR players though that it's actually really solid, so especially even underwater zone where it's a couple hundred more trash an hour. Nothing amazing like, say, whatchamacallit, Ranger, which I hear they're pretty ridiculous at PvE, but this isn't bad at all. Now that I'm getting a little bit more used to it, it's not bad. Still not DP shredding properly. Like, zones like this, you want to DP shred properly. So, doing everything you can to get those DP shreds to stay on. Ooh, we almost died. Let's go and heal up. Oh yeah, I mean, I don't have any pots on right now, that's a problem. I wiped them all out. But, yeah, I mean, that's the idea. Like I said, I'm not going to sit here and try to claim I'm any good at PvE, so you guys can figure it out. At least this will give you something to work with. Yikes. Anyways. Yep. So that's the PvE. It's not bad at all. Not bad at all. I'd say it's fine. I'm obviously not used to this, but I can see where it's actually pretty solid when you get used to it. I can see the speed and everything is really nice. I'm just not used to the keys. Once you get used to the keys, then it's probably pretty efficient. And I don't have any Frenzy Elixir or a Villa on right now, so like that makes a huge difference. And I'm only like 279 AP from Nova's perspective. So I'd say the damage is actually pretty solid.